on the messianic prophecies and line the lineage of how Jesus is really a central figure in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. And Wednesday night we got started looking through the Old Testament, got through creation, Adam and Eve, the original sin, Cain and Abel, and I think that's about as far as we got before we ran out of time. So this morning we're going to be dealing with the time period between the flood and the calling of Abram. So anyway, like I said Wednesday night, this is old school. There's no PowerPoint presentation to this morning, so you'll have to pull your Bible out and follow along. So we'll be starting in chapter 6. We start this morning while we get out of God here in prayer. Almighty Father in heaven, we once again thank you for this day, this opportunity that we have to come and worship you. We thank you for being our God. You bless us in so many ways, especially the hope that we have to be with you someday through the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. Father, your word is alive, your word is true, and we pray that as we study it this morning that we will understand it, grasp it, and know how we can share that word with others so that they too can come to know you. Be with us this morning, and in Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. So just a quick recap. Last Wednesday night we started really with creation. And you remember that God, when he began to create, he said, let us make. And so we talked about the us, God the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. We're all there in that presence before creation happened. And then ultimately God had created the heavens and the earth and all the things and the beings, and man came along about the sixth day. God rested on the seventh, and everything was good. God put Adam and Eve, after he created them, in the Garden of Eden, and there was bliss there for sure, because there was only one rule in their lives. Don't eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But unfortunately, they couldn't adhere to that. And the serpent, Satan, comes on the scene, and he kind of messes things up. And so the original sin that happened was the disobedience of God, and all of a sudden then man has no way to atone for his sins except what God provides. Leading on then, when we get into Cain and Abel, after Adam and Eve were put out of the garden, Cain and Abel, and the sin of Cain killing his brother Abel. So sin is intensifying now. First sin is disobeying God. The second one's a little more violent, more serious, I guess I should say. Or sin is sin. But anyway, Cain and Abel, and but we do see that because Abel's dead, Cain has been banished, Adam and Eve conceived another son, Sept, and we find that it's now going to be through Seth's lineage that eventually Christ comes into the world. After lesson Wednesday night, I got a couple of questions from a couple of participants, and thank you. I appreciate that. I like that. Rocky Harbin asked, in Genesis 3:15, it says that there's going to be enmity between the serpent's seed and the woman's seed. And what is the serpent's seed? Yeah, that was a great question. I hadn't thought about that. And I don't know that I have the exact answer for that, but in what I studied, it appears that anyone who does not believe in Christ is the son of the devil. Let's go to Acts 13:10, for example. This is Paul talking here, I believe. Remember? Yeah, 13:10. And Paul's talking to the name of Elvis, who's a sorcerer. He says, you are a child of the devil and an enemy of everything that is right. You're full of all kinds of deceit and trickery. Will you never stop perverting the right ways of the Lord? There's a couple other, and I won't go into because of the time we have today, but John chapter 8, verses 42 through 47, Jesus is talking to the Pharisees there, and he again tells the Pharisees, your father is Satan because you won't accept me. And Satan deceives, he lies, he does all kinds of things, which takes you right back to the Garden of Eden, what the serpent did to Eve. And then finally, a third one, if you want to write this down. 1 John chapter 3, verse 10. And again, John there talks about Satan as the father. Sean Stevens gave me a couple of good ones. One was a comment, one was a question. I appreciate those too. The comment was, we talked, about where was it the Garden of Eden? And actually, nobody knows for sure. There's a tradition that holds that it's at the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates River today in South Iraq. Well, the fact is that the flood, Shauna said she had been in a seminar or class that talked about this, the flood obliterated what the world was like at that time. When it describes where the Garden of Eden was in the Bible, there are certain of those rivers and one other landmark that's never been found. They don't know where it's at. So, there is actually no way of knowing where the Garden of Eden is or was. One commentator actually said too, the flood would have deposited hundreds, if not thousands, of feet of sediment, from the washing of the hills and mountains. The whole surface of the earth was rearranged through the flood. So I just want to make clear, I didn't tell you that Garden of Eden is in South Iraq today, so let's do that. And the other thing I guess I should say that I read was that, people would have had names for landmarks and places before the flood. So it's not, it wouldn't be, get the word.
I think I know what you're trying to say, Marcus. It's like when they come to this new land, America, they name the place New York.
Yes.
New Amsterdam first.
Yes.
But there's a whole bunch of cities in Arkansas that are named after places in Greece and Italy and the Bible lands. And
Sure. Exactly.
So people had to name new places after the flood, and they might have named them by names we were familiar with.
Yeah, Tigris.
Well, by that same token, in Genesis, in the same scripture you're talking about, it mentions, and this is in this geographical location. So, I get the feeling if we can relate it to some sort of geography that God was giving that message to the ancient Jews, and if we can relate it to landmarks that they knew about, we can sort of get a general idea. But we can't specify it was down here.
Yeah. Sam?
You have to remember too that the only members that were on earth at that time were Noah and his family.
Right. They carried.
So what they did was all that anybody else did. So it's essentially a new renaming.
The bottom line too is it doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter today where the garden was. Okay, I need to move on. Sean also brought up the question, how did God know, when Cain and Abel gave their sacrifices or their offerings, it said that God respected Abel's offering, but he didn't respect Cain's. And the question is, why didn't he respect Cain's offering? Because it really never says in particular. The only thing that I came up with there was a couple of scriptures, Hebrews 11:4, if you want to look at that real quick. This is a faith chapter again in Hebrews. But it says there that by faith Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did. By faith he was commended as a righteous man when God spoke well of his offering. And by faith he still speaks even though he is dead. So there's another scripture, 1 John 3:12, that also talks about Abel being a righteous man, inferring that Cain was not a righteous man. So I think there's two elements of this that God considered. One was the faith that Cain had, and second was his righteousness. We don't know any more about Cain than that, but those are probably based on the scriptures of the New Testament, elements that entered into God's decision. I suspect that Cain probably wasn't a great fellow. before the offering was made too. So, anyway, thanks for those questions, we'll go from there. All right, Genesis chapter 6 and the flood. Anybody ever heard of the flood? No, it's epic. We have learned about the flood from time to, knee high. And rightfully so. A very significant event. What was the issue back then? Sin was it had been like 1,500 years since Noah had been since Adam and Eve had been created. And we saw that sin started to accelerate. How bad had sin gotten by the time of the pre-flood? Say what? Every thought of man was evil. Let's look at chapter 6, verses 1 through a little ways here. When men began to increase in number on the earth, the daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. All right, first conflict. You have sons of God, those who look to God and supposedly were faithful. But then they saw daughters of men, and that would refer to those who did not embrace God as a creator, I suspect. And we see other examples of that through the Old Testament. But anyway, and they married any of them that they chose. But the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years. Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men, and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, and now. Then if we jump to verse 11. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, and for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So they were evil. The world was not a nice place to live in. But yet here was this man by the name of Noah. And what do we know about Noah that God acknowledged?
He walked with God.
Yeah, he walked with God. In verse 9, Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Cannot pronounce that one either. So, God's intention was to do what? Before Noah is introduced to us. He was going to destroy what? Everything. Yeah, he was going to destroy all the life on earth. He was going to destroy the earth itself, vegetation. I mean, it was going to be basically wipe the slate clean. And then we're introduced to Noah. So what changed God's mind? Or did God change his mind? I guess is a question. Because now he sees Noah, or he shows us Noah, and he says, make yourself an ark of cypress, in 14. So, he modifies the original plans that we see at the early part of chapter 6. So now he's going to save Noah and his family, and certain life on earth, if Noah will do what? Obey him. Yes, obey him. I think that's a key thing. In Genesis 6:18, it says, God says to Noah, I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, and bring your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Why was it so important that not all life be destroyed on earth?
We had Jesus prophesied already.
Exactly. Yeah, back in the original sin, the fact that God would save us through Adam and Eve's seed, basically said that if I destroy everything now, then that nullifies what I said back then. Does he really change his mind, do you think? Does God change his mind about things?
Yes.
Yes, he does. Any other examples? Yeah. I think, is that the story where if you can find 100 righteous people or something? I think that he changes his mind also about a proclamation he makes for one of the kings and gives him an extra life, 40 days or something. I don't remember exactly. I didn't look him up. It just dawned on me this morning. But I think God does change his mind at times. And, but he still has a plan. And what was his plan here, even in spite of the flood? That's right. That through Jesus there would be atonement someday. Yes, Captain?
He did not change his mind about destroying the earth. Because in verse 13, it says, "For the earth is filled with violence because of them, and behold, I am about to destroy them with the earth." And he was talking to Noah at the time, and he was telling him to make himself an ark.
All right, so let's back up to verse 7. And so the Lord said, "I will wipe mankind whom I have created from the face of the earth, men and animals and creatures that move along the ground and birds of the air, for I am grieved that I have made him." So there's the contrast between, I think, God's original position. He said, "I'm going to wipe mankind from the earth." Subsequently, Noah, as a righteous man, God decides to work through him then. And he established a covenant. And basically the covenant was, you do what I tell you, and we'll get you through the flood, basically. So that was kind of what it was. And as Sam said, this is important because that messianic prophecy would have been broken if it hadn't been for Noah and his family. Ultimately, after they come out of the ark, then we'll not go through all the details of the 40 days and nights and things, but we find out that it is through one of Noah's sons then that the lineage of Christ will eventually come. Let's see. I think I got that. So anyway, if we get on into chapter 10 then, I know we're going a little fast, but again, you know the stories. The three sons of Noah were Ham, Japheth, and Shem. Each of them, when Noah and his family came out of the ark, God told him, "Go forth, multiply, spread throughout the earth, if you will." Ham and his descendants basically went into the land of Canaan that we know today, and they knew back then, into northern Africa, into Egypt, Libya, Ethiopia, based on the tribes. That's what chapter 10 tells us, some of those names, and we were able to relate to that. Japheth, the son, most of he and his descendants basically settled in southern Europe and some Eurasia area. And then Shem, who is now the lineage going to Christ, he and his family kind of settled in the Mesopotamia area, Iran, Iraq today, northeast of the Persian Gulf. So that whole area that is going to become important when we talk about Abram here in a few minutes. All right, then there's an account in chapter 11 of Genesis about the Tower of, I say Babel. Is that right? Is that the way everybody pronounces it? It's not Babel, is it? Huh? I've always learned it as Babel, and I want to make sure. So, are they? Okay, very good. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. All right, so this is sometime after the flood then, and once again, man is repopulating the earth. Actually, this is going to come before the time when we just talked about, when all of the descendants of Noah's sons have populated the earth. Because it says in verse 1, now the whole world had one language and a common speech. We know that after that, and as people moved and dispersed around the world, that the speech was different. But anyway, they found a plaintive sinner. And what did the men do, or what did the people do at that time? What did they decide? Why was the tower built? They wanted to reach toward the heaven or into the heavens, depending on the translation that you have. That's right. But it also was a personal thing. Verse 3, they said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth." I don't know what the imminence was that the people thought that they were going to be scattered, but apparently they had remained somewhat close up to that point in time. But they said, "We want to make a name for ourselves." It reminded me when I was studying that about a joke somebody told me about a redneck, that if you hear a redneck say, "Hey, watch this," it's probably the last thing he's ever going to do, because it's just a bad decision. And that was the fault of the people that are involved in this story. It was all about them. What should they have done if they wanted to build a tower? Say what? Yeah, they should have talked to God. But clearly, as you read through this, like in verse 5,